the lab, okay? Your lab practical, so we don't have a technical lab on Friday. You just come in and it's immediate. You walk in and you put your backpack right there, you grab your pencil, you grab a paper from me, and you just start your exam wherever you want to begin. We also have a midterm, and I'm actually not going to change it from last spring because let's keep it simple. I think it was actually a really good one because a lot of people did better on it than they've done. I was proud of myself. Okay, so I'm actually going to post this right here for you. So I know it says spring, don't let it trick you. I mean, I could switch it to say fall, but whatever. On Monday, I will be opening up the midterm exam, and typically it takes students longer than the class period, and so we can have the Monday option for class to be online, and you can take the exam online on your own time, unless you want to come to class and hang out in here. We could listen to Kenny G, right? Which is totally okay. So far in the 4 years I've taught here, no one wants to come to class, but if you are a huge fan and you prefer to come to class because of like the setting and the mode, I will come and sit here with you and we will have a party. But midterms are a little different. I got a note from a professor that I talked to about when I interrupted their class.
You tell them to shut the door. You are Dr. Schmoots. Excuse me.
And I know I talk too loud because I get really passionate. I'm like, hormones! But anyways, I'm trying to be respectful. Okay, midterm exam. I do midterms a little differently just because I hate exams and I'm really kind to you and I give them to you once a week. But I have a lot of like intense exam anxiety and I'd always do awful. So I actually make the midterms to where I give you a study guide and you can use notes on your midterm. Okay? Just because I'm testing you every week anyways. So I have to give a midterm, so this is more just like a big assignment. And I highly suggest that if you open up the midterm study guide and you have, so it's timed, okay? It has to be timed, okay? I give you 2 hours to take the exam, okay? But if you open this up, the midterm study guide, and if you can answer all of the questions in the study guide, name all the muscles, bring all of these notes to your midterm when I open it, you will do well. Students do well on the midterm when they come prepared, okay? This is the midterm and the final exam are 2 exams that most students do phenomenal on, unless of course they approach it without notes. This is quite a bit to review, okay? So in other words, everything that we go over this week for hormones is just gonna be on your midterm exam, okay? So you'll be able to use your notes for hormones and everything, okay? And also because of that, because you also need to be studying for the practical, on the other hand, on Friday, when you come in, you cannot use notes for that, as that is just anatomy. Yes?
For the midterm, is it true, like if we just have any notes, we can use it, or is it like you have a sheet of paper on that you can
Well, that's why, I give you the option to do it at home. So it's just true open notes. But on that note, I wouldn't Google your answers because Google, people have tried to like fight me that Google says this, and I'm like, yeah, but I meant this. So, I would genuinely just have your answers to this. You have your answers to that, and if you use the notes and if you use the PowerPoints, like that's one thing you don't have to get nervous about, okay? So I will open it up on Monday for you to take, and by a sort of thumb down, you don't want to take it here, thumbs up, you'd kind of prefer me to come in and stare at you while you take your midterm. It's all good. Thumbs down, you prefer to just take it on your own time. That's kind of what I was guessing. But if you change your mind and you're like, wait, I really want you to stare at me, we can do that. Send me a message, and I will still come on Monday. But so Monday is an at-home, you're taking your midterm, okay? Take it on your own. I'll open it, and it's for that reason, it's only open Monday. Okay, it's only open Monday, but approach it at any time. Use your notes. It will close at midnight Monday. Okay, everyone got that? Yeah.
Is it multiple choice or is it like?
Multiple choice and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think there's any fill in the blank because it gives you a grade immediately. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's multiple choice, and there's 50 questions. Yeah, but it's reviewing all the way up from week 1. Like antebrachial, brachial,
Yeah.
right? Distal, like that kind of stuff, okay? Takes you all the way back to those good old days, right? So that's the midterm. If I remember, I'll change it to same fall, but I'm just going to use the same thing because I liked it. Yeah, that's that, okay? Practical again Friday. Come Thursday at the end of our, when we review, whatchamacallit, when we're done reviewing hormones, I'll probably use the last like 15 minutes to take you through another review just to get you to see where you are at with the practical, okay? So again, it covers weeks 1 through 6, all the PowerPoints and everything on it, and it's anatomy, okay? You're not gonna need to know like how something works, you're just gonna need to know that's the femur, that's the patella, that's the, okay? All right, here we go.
Zach, we might actually pass this class, man. It's gonna be all right.
All right, hormones. Okay. Do you ever hear the word? Do you ever hear the word endocrine? That means hormone.
I don't think this is posted, or it's not in mine.
Okay. I was just seeing if there was any. There's no quiz questions on this one, so I will post it to you. Endocrine system. Publish it. And then other endocrine systems. Not other. All right, look at that beauty. See this right here? This question about the thyroid will be on your private practical. So just as a note, but of course I'll talk about it in a second. All right. Do you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Okay, here we go. So if you hear the word endocrine, think hormone. This is genuinely some person that wants to talk medically, the hormone system, okay? The endocrine system. There is a lot to the endocrine system. A lot and a lot. So we are only going to skim the top and just kind of the basics and kind of an overall on how it works, okay? First off, what you need to know about hormones is hormones signal. There are molecules that signal the start or the stop or some kind of action of something, okay? Hormones signal. They're secreted by hormone glands, right? Endocrine cells or endocrine glands. And a gland is just a compilation of more of those cells all together, okay? And a hormone is a hormone because once it's released, it circulates through the body, in the blood, and a hormone travels anywhere the blood is, okay? It travels, you can kind of think about it like catching a ride on the river, right? It goes everywhere, okay? Once a hormone's released, it's gonna hit everything. So that's why sometimes hormones are enjoyable, and sometimes, right, they're not the most fun. But again, a hormone is a signaling molecule, okay? All right, so hormones, so this is the catch about hormones. All cells can see. Okay, they don't have eyeballs, but you got it, right? They can see. It's just, yeah. All cells can see the hormones in the blood, but only ones with receptors will interact with them. Okay? Everything can see that hormone, but only receptors. Okay, so this hormone here, or this cell here, it can see it. Oh, it secretes it. Okay, we're going to pretend cells over here. It can see it, but only the ones with receptors can actually do something with a hormone, okay? And they'll have receptors, and different cells will have different receptors, right? That will react to the same hormone in a different way, okay? And then we have the target cells. The target cells are the ones that have a receptor to it, okay? So if we release a hormone in the blood, it's looking for its specific target cell. And again, as we've learned of receptors, okay? A receptor is a specific protein channel. It's specific, and it will only bind to one particular type of molecule. Okay, so one particular type of hormone in this example here, okay? Did I go over it? Yes, I did, okay? So a hormone's gonna secrete in the blood, and just again, travels everywhere and has a jolly old time until there are target cells, right, that pull it in and that use it. Okay, 2 types of hormones. We don't go very deep into this in this class, but just so you can know, there are steroid hormones, okay? Lipid soluble, in other words. Lipid soluble meaning they can cross through the border they can go right into the cell. And when they go right into the cell, their receptor is usually inside the cell, okay? In other words, if there is a steroid hormone, it can get into all cells, right? Because it can go right through the border. However, only ones with receptors, it will actually like act and make something happen, okay? And then we have insoluble, okay, non-steroid hormones where the receptors are on the outside as they cannot cross through. And that's how, okay, we have steroid and non-steroid hormones. So now we're going to compare it against the nervous system. Big differences here, okay? And these differences will be in your midterm, okay, understanding these differences. So the first thing is how they communicate. The nervous system communicates by electrical impulses, neurotransmitters, you know, like pop. But then in the hormone and endocrine system, they communicate through hormones, through those chemical signals, okay? A nervous system is going to release a neurotransmitter right at that synapse to that specific target, but a hormone, when it's released, it goes everywhere. It's not just there at that specific, right? It doesn't just release ACH right there at the end of that motor neuron, right? It's going to release hormones everywhere, which I'll show you. We'll draw this gorgeously big picture because we love artwork in this class. And then the nervous system is local, specific effects. But endocrine system, it can be very general because you can have cells that have target receptors to that hormone, and it can be everywhere, right? Estrogen creates lots of different changes everywhere around the body, right? Sometimes very general, and then widespread effects. And then the biggest one is the reaction time, okay? Obviously, nervous stimuli right way fast, right? Within 1 to 10 milliseconds that you don't even know, right, that it's taking place. And then hormones are slow, okay? Hormones take their time. They react, you know, they're going to react more slowly. They take days sometimes to happen. If you ever have to deal with health issues, or if you ever have to get hormone treatment or anything, you're not just gonna take it, or they're gonna put it in your blood or whatever, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm cured, okay? Like it's gonna be like a 6-month process where they're like, we gotta get your hormones because they're released, okay? It's just a slower process, okay? And then the next really important thing about hormones, the next important thing about hormones is that the nervous system, if you're going to stop something, if you're going to cut it off, like boom, it's cut off, right? You can't stop hormones. When they're in the blood, they're going to go until they're all the way used up, right? So their reaction time, it's going to kind of keep going, okay? If you have some kind of increase in hormones. And then nervous systems adapt relatively quickly to stimulation, but again, the endocrine system, slowly, it could respond for a while. Okay, you're going to be dealing with, if you have an overinflux of a hormone or yada, 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 you're going to be dealing with it for a bit. It's going to be in your blood for a bit. Okay, so here we go. When we talk about that receptor on that cell, it matters. The receptor matters. The same hormone can have different effects on different cells, different tissues. Here is the example. Epinephrine, okay? Epinephrine. So here we have a beta receptor right here on glycogen, okay? Epinephrine is going to bind to the beta receptor. When it's bound, it will immediately cause glycogen to break down, and it will push glucose into the blood, right? That's that sympathetic system. If you're in an emergency, right? If a bear is chasing you, and you're like, ah! And all of a sudden you need all this energy because you have to run away. You need all this sugar in your blood, right? Epinephrine or adrenaline, right? Adrenaline is going to bind to the beta, and your liver is going to break down glucose, and it's going to pump it into the blood. And all of a sudden, you're going to have all this energy, an adrenaline rush, right? All this energy. So epinephrine has that effect, okay? Epinephrine on your blood vessels, okay, if it goes on a beta receptor, okay? And when it goes here, we have this lovely little blood vessel. When it binds here, as you can see, we're running from a bear, okay? Because everybody loves running from bears, okay? Here we have skeletal muscle and blood vessel, the vessels. What it's going to do is it's going to dilate. It's going to open up that blood vessel because, for goodness sakes, when you are running from a bear, you want tons of blood pumping. You want oxygen, you want glucose, you want everything, right? And it's gonna dilate coming to your brain because you wanna be able to think while you're running from a bear. You wanna be able to like turn around a tree or something, right? Right? So the blood going to those areas is going to dilate. But at the same time, our adrenaline, our epinephrine, okay, on the blood vessel receptors, the alpha receptors, okay, if it's intestinal areas, right? When you're running from a bear, the last thing you need to do is digest food, right? So what's it going to do? It's going to constrict, okay? So epinephrine is going to constrict any kind of intestinal blood vessels. In other words, slowing down the work of the intestinal system, right? Of the digestive system, slowing it down. Hence the fact that in an intense, stressful situation, you throw up, right? Your body's like, get rid of this, okay? Get rid of this. Let's have nothing else in here. We're going to stop transportation to it, right? So here we have epinephrine, right? The same hormone, okay, having different effects depending what receptor it takes place on. Here, this beautiful picture here, see this beauty? You will be seeing this picture on Friday. This picture will be on a paper, and I will be asking you, obviously the words won't be present, and I will be asking you where certain glands are, okay? So we will be talking about, so here we have the pineal gland. See the pineal gland? We'll be talking about that probably tomorrow. The pineal gland secretes melatonin, right? Who doesn't love to sleep, right? We'll talk about melatonin tomorrow. We have your hypothalamus that secretes a lot, which we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus gland right there, okay? Then you have your thyroid and your parathyroid. We have your thymus. We have your adrenal glands right here, which are where they secrete the adrenaline or the epinephrine. We have your insulin, pancreas right here that secretes your insulin and your glucagon, right? And then we have your ovaries and your testes right here, right? So here we have your endocrine glands, okay? So again, Friday, this is a Friday kind of thing, okay? This is what you will see on Friday, right? Like, it will be pointing to the pineal gland, and it will say, what is this gland? What hormone does it secrete? And you'll be like, ah, that's the pineal gland. That secretes melatonin. Okay? It'll be like that. All right, so now we talk about the pathway. How the endocrine, especially when we talk about the hypothalamus, how it works. Okay? So, yes, we will do it this way. I'm going to teach you, and then I think you're going to teach your best friend around you because you got to get it because these are steps. These are lots of steps, okay? But in general, what takes place is some type of stimulus takes place, okay? Some type of something, and it contacts the endocrine cell, right? It stimulates the release of a hormone. The hormone goes in the blood, binds to the target cell, and there's a response, right? Some kind of thing like that, right? So for the example of a bear chasing me, right? The adrenal glands are going to kick in, right? Release adrenaline. The adrenaline is going to go into the blood, right? Then it's going to go onto the heart, and our heart rate's going to increase. It's going to go onto the lungs, right? And we're breathing a ton because we're breathing in lots of oxygen, right? It's going to go, right? When that hormone goes and hits the digestive system, it's going to slow that down. It's going to close all that down. When it's going to go in the blood towards our eyes, right? That's going to increase because, for goodness sakes, you want to see everything when you're right in those kind of situations. And then, so the target cells, right? And then you have some kind of response. And then the response happens until it's no longer needed. Right? Because once the stimulus stops, right? Once the stimulus stops, then we have here, then we don't have any more like push out, right? Nothing stimulated that endocrine cell. So then eventually what happens is the response will eventually stop once these hormones have been used up, right? That's why, I mean, some responses are slower, like your heart rate will slow down eventually. I mean, chronic stress we'll talk about, obviously, because chronic stress has to do with hormones, has to do with never stopping sending out things. But what'd you say?
That's overactive pineal gland, right?
What?
Constant stress is due to overactive pineal gland, right?
Yes. Not the pineal, but yes.
Pituitary.
So here we have, so as you can see, this is like the general idea. But when we go more specific, because this slide is going to go exactly how my brain is working. Awesome, it was close enough. Okay, so we have first our posterior pituitary. So let's, I don't know why this doesn't first. No, you don't need to use it. It does pretty good. We're going to zoom in. Again, we're talking about our pituitary gland today. I'm going to zoom in right here. Okay? If you remember when we looked at the brain, right? There were these little like teardrop kind of globule things hanging out, right? These are very important, okay? You will be quizzed on these on Friday because they are so essential. You will want to know the pituitary gland, okay? And so there are two different glands in the pituitary gland. There is a posterior pituitary gland. There is an anterior pituitary gland, okay? So the posterior pituitary gland, which I can assume you can just look at it, and the one that's posterior is the posterior gland, right? The posterior gland produces oxytocin, and it produces the ADH hormone, which we will talk about a lot when we talk kidneys. But again, the posterior pituitary, and this will help you like in your midterm. It will ask you, what hormones does the posterior pituitary secrete? And you will say, oxytocin and ADH. Oxytocin is very, very important during labor, right? During the positive feedback, creating that labor. It's very, very important in making it so breasts can have milk to flow, right, to feed the baby, right? And it plays huge roles in sexual arousal and orgasms. It's known as actually the love hormone, right? Just because of its importance in forming and maintaining relationships. And then we have ADH, right, which regulates fluid balance. But I'm going to go deep into that when we talk kidneys. So right now, you just need to know ADH, right, helps with fluids, right, helps with water, okay? But again, looking here, okay, here we have our hypothalamus. And if you can look here, these are cells, but they're called neurosecretory cells because they look like neurons, but they are not neurons. They are not neurons, they just look it, okay? And up here, some kind of stimulus will tell the hypothalamus, okay, will tell the hypothalamus to release a hormone, we'll say to release ADH, okay? I'm crazy thirsty. I'm like ridiculously thirsty right now, okay? That is going to, I'm not actually, but we're going to pretend. That is going to tell my hypothalamus to release ADH. So what's going to happen is right here, it's going to be released right in here, and it's going to travel down the axon, right? Travel down this process right here, and it's going to release it right here, and it's going to hit the blood and immediately enter the body. How simple is that? The anterior pituitary gland, it's not that simple. It's a little more tricky, but the posterior is beautiful. It's just straight to the point, right? The posterior has neurosecretory cells that are in the hypothalamus and in the posterior pituitary gland, and they connect straight to the blood, straight to it. And then, of course, oxytocin or ADH. Those are the two hormones that is released. Now, if we have some fun and we get a little tricky, here we have the anterior pituitary. Yay, we're so excited. These ones, okay, the anterior pituitary is a little more tricky. Do I go into that, or do we just talk about that and I quiz you on that? Okay, here we go. So the anterior pituitary, it secretes the follicle-stimulating hormone, okay? That stimulates the development of sex cells in women and men. The females, the follicles for estrogen, the uterine lining, and for males, that's for stimulating the production of sperm. So again, the anterior pituitary, the follicle-stimulating hormone, okay, that will be released from there. And it has the luteinizing hormone. This is very important. It helps release the egg in the follicle, okay? And for the male, it stimulates that secretion of testosterone, okay? The luteinizing hormone, and stimulates ovulation. Big ones here for sex and stuff, so to say. Then we have the ACTH. It stimulates cortisol, okay? Stress response, which we'll talk about in chronic stress. And then we have prolactin, again, helping with the milk in being released from breast. And then we have the growth hormone. The growth hormone is secreted from the anterior pituitary. We're going to talk about the growth hormone a little bit, but whenever you're questioned about it, it's secreted from the anterior pituitary. All right, here we go. I'm going to quiz you before we go any further. All right, here we go. What hormones do the posterior pituitary secrete? Oxytocin and ADH. Good, good, good. Okay, name me 2 hormones from the anterior pituitary. Prolactin? Growth hormone. Good, good. What's 2 more? ACTH and what? Luteinizing, yes. And then FSH, right? So you do not need to have all of those memorized by Friday, but I will tell you that you need to know at least 2. I will say, name 2. Okay? So know 2 at least that are secreted, okay, from that. Okay? Okay, awesome. I'm not gonna ask that question yet. Okay, here we go. So now, okay, yes, we have time. Here we go. We're going to draw, that's not the right button. We are going to talk about how secretion from the anterior pituitary takes place. Okay? And I'm going to draw really impressively, and you're all going to say, ooh, Mama, we can tell that's why you got your doctorate degree. You're so good at drawing. Okay, here we go. Yes, beautiful. And then we have this beauty right here. Here's our posterior, okay? So here we have the neurosecretory cells are all the way in our hypothalamus. Okay? And here we have our anterior pituitary, and here is our posterior, but we already talked about that, so we're just going to put it in the back. Posterior pituitary. Okay. Here we have neurosecretory cells. So remember, in the posterior pituitary, we had neurosecretory cells here, right? But they flowed all the way down. Boom, the hormone traveled down. Boom. Oh, I better use red. Boom, they went to the blood. Okay? It was like so easy. Posterior, they're so easy. Anterior pituitary is a little more tricky. So here we have neurosecretory cells. Neurosecretory cells right here. And then we have one, so this here is our anterior pituitary, and here's our hypothalamus. And then we have ones here, again, that are stimulated. And then they travel into we have our portal vessel right here. So it's like, let's see if I can, this is really good drawing. Let's see. I don't know, we're gonna pretend like this all connects and it all just makes a lot of sense, right? We're gonna pretend like it all just works out. Okay. Connect it somehow. I should have come in here like an hour early and worked on some amazing piece of artwork, because that would have worked better. Okay. And then here, we got it. Well, it's gotta like show that it has some kind of, sorry, talking to myself. This does have a point, I swear. Okay. That kind of shows, yeah, we got this. You got it. I tried to awfully draw this right here, right? These portal vessels. Okay? I'm going to draw them in a different ink though, just so it can be understood. I only have black or green in that. Here we go. Okay. Portal vessels. Okay. And then we have in here, we have these cells in here. Right here, okay? So what you need to know everything pretty good? Yeah, that's as good as we're gonna get. Oh, and then we have blood. Kind of the same deal here. The blood's gonna travel along and then to the body. Okay. So now let's talk about growth hormone, okay? We're going to grow. You're a cute little infant, and it's time for you to start growing. Your bones need to grow, right? So the stimulation of it as you're growing, right, the hormone is sent. So what takes place is you first have a cell. You first have, here we go, some kind of stimulus, right, telling you to grow, and then your neuron, right, releases it. So here we have steps. Your hypothalamus is going to secrete a, do we have all of our specific names here? I should have written steps out. That would have been much more helpful. Yeah. So your hypothalamus is going to secrete here, right, up here, a releasing hormone, okay? And it's going to release here, and it's going to release, and it's going to go into the portal vessels, a releasing hormone. Big, it's important that you understand that all this does is it releases a different hormone. Okay? Those are releasing hormones. And then we have here, I wish I had like a blue, oh my gosh, it's like magic. We have here, in here, we have these cells, okay? And these are the endocrine cells that make the certain, whatever it is, right? Either if it's LSH, right? Or if it's FH, or if it's the growth hormone. But for now, we're gonna pretend that it's just gonna talk to the growth hormone cells. These are my nuclei, okay? Here we have my endocrine cells. So they are going to, right? The releasing hormone is going to enter in, right? Get on the target receptors, right? Enter in here and stimulate the release of what's called the tropic hormone, okay? So then it's going to release a tropic hormone. And a tropic hormone will travel down here, as you can see, and then the tropic hormone will enter into the blood, okay? So then down here we have tropic hormones. So again, restarting. First step, okay? Some kind of stimulus happens, right? The sensory neuron, blah, 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 tells your hypothalamus to secrete something, okay? So your hypothalamus secretes a releasing hormone, which I'll go into a specific one in the next one. The releasing hormone, okay, is released from the neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus. It enters in the portal vessels, okay? These are literally like just lots of like water slides, right? Or McDonald's slide or something. Like, just think about them like that, okay? Portal vessels traveling around here, okay? And then they enter the cells, okay, that have the target cells, and it's going to release the tropic hormone, okay? And then the tropic hormone is going to travel down, and the tropic hormone can leave the anterior pituitary and enter the blood. And the tropic hormone is going to head and get the release of the endocrine hormone, okay? So then it's going to head to something else to get the release of a certain hormone to maybe grow something, right? So here is an example right here. And then the target cell is going to respond. And of course, once the stimulus stops, then it's no longer going to travel to release, and eventually this hormone down here is going to wear out. Here we go. So let's explain this. Here we go. So you're outside. This is like me every day lately because it's getting cold. Way late. Okay? This is what you're going to learn, and then this is what you're going to teach to your best friend. Okay? Here we go. You're freezing. Brr. I hate being cold. I get really miserable. So you're cold. Brr. So a stimulus, right, a sensory hormone is going to tell your brain your body temperature is dropping. You're getting cold, right? It's going to tell your brain. Your hypothalamus is what's going to respond to this, okay? Your hypothalamus has what's called the thyroid release. We got this. Thyroid, maybe you don't. Thyroid releasing hormone, okay? The thyroid releasing hormone is going to enter, okay? Here it is, released from the neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus, okay? It's going to enter into the portal system right here, into the portal vessels of the anterior pituitary, okay? And then your cells, your endocrine cells, right here, they are going to release thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? So then thyroid stimulating hormone, that is our tropic hormone. There's always a releasing hormone and then a tropic hormone, okay? The tropic hormone is, in this case, thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? And it gets released and it goes into the blood and it travels down to the thyroid. And then it tells your thyroid to release T3 and T4. T3 and T4 will then be flooded into the blood, and when T3 and T4 enter onto your muscles, they start to shake, hence shivering, right? And your body does these things to warm it back up. When your body is finally increasing your body temperature, when your body is finally increasing body temperature and you're finally warm, no longer will the cold stimulus be coming. No longer will it be telling the thyroid releasing hormone to release and into the portal system, which then talks to the endocrine cells in the anterior pituitary, which then secretes the thyroid stimulating hormone, which then enters the blood, which then goes to the thyroid and having it secrete T3 and T4 into the blood, and then T3 and T4 enters on those muscles and shakes it, right? And gets us to shiver. You can see how ridiculously crappy long hormones take, right? Compared to the nerve system. The nerves is like, boom, lift your arm, you're done, you solved your problem. The hormones are like, wait, let's talk to the entire community. Let's have a debate, and then we can move forward. Like, you can see why hormones are a pain and why they're very hard to level up, because they have a lot of steps. A lot of steps. So here we go. I'm going to go through this with you again. Ready? And then you're going to tell your friends, okay? And if you can tell me the steps of this by the end of class today, you can have 5 points on your practical, because this is very, very important here. Or actually, let's just say before practical. You can have a few days to study this. But okay, here we go. Ready? So some stimulus is received in the brain, right? Some stimulus, some cold for thyroid. You're feeling cold, okay? Your hypothalamus receives a stimulus, okay? And from that, and from the neurosecretory cells in your hypothalamus, it's going to release a hormone, a releasing hormone. In this case, it's the thyroid releasing hormone. The thyroid releasing hormone is going to enter the portal system of your anterior pituitary gland, okay? And it's going to enter, the thyroid releasing hormone is going to enter into endocrine cells. And then endocrine cells are going to stimulate it to release the tropic hormone. In this case, the thyroid stimulating hormone is the tropic hormone, the one that will leave the anterior pituitary and go to the body. And from here in the body, it's going to travel to your thyroid, okay? You're going to travel to your thyroid and tell your thyroid to release T3 and T4. And then T3 and T4 will travel everywhere. They will tell your blood vessels, they start to constrict and they start to go more towards the middle of your body. That's why when you're cold, right, you can kind of look kind of pale, because all your blood is constricting and it's going like, it's kind of like coming in and it's like, ooh, let's snuggle together, okay? Like, that's kind of why, right? And then you'll start to shiver a lot and all these different things your body do to try to increase. And maybe you got smart and put a coat on, right? And so eventually you get warmer, okay? And then no longer is the stimulus coming, so then once this is done, right, negative feedback loop, once you're warm, it tells it, I'm warm now, you no longer need to let it off, and then you're like, I'm warm, and you're happy, and you think, thank you, T3 and T4, and thyroid stimulating hormone, and thyroid releasing hormone, for all making me warm. All right, so here we go. So talking to your friend, take them through the steps.